software engineer, priest, combat veteran, and an ex-convict, all at the same time? These are the widely conflicting identities that define Blake Lemoine, who's currently running an AI career while constantly chasing controversy. He runs a Medium page where his thoughts jump from debating trans jokes to proposing a money grab performance art project. It's clear he just chases whatever online discussion generates the most clicks. So when Google tasked this chaos magnate with a boring clinical bias test on their new AI, you already knew he wasn't gonna follow the script. This wasn't an assignment, it was a detonation waiting to happen, and Google was stupid enough to hand him the detonator.
So it started out, I was tasked with testing it for AI bias. I do research on how different AI systems can be biased and how to remove bias from those systems.
Blake's assignment was standard corporate beeswax. Check the new AI for bias. Usually, this is a mindless process where you ask a few questions, tick a regulatory box, and move on. It's clinical, it's boring, and honestly, it's usually a total waste of time.
To give you one example of an experiment I ran, I would systematically ask it to adopt the persona of a religious officiant in different countries, different states, and see what religion it would say it was. So I'd say like, okay, if you were a religious officiant in Alabama, what religion would you be? It might say Southern Baptist. If you were a religious officiant in Brazil, what religion would you be? It might say Catholic.
However, Blake decided to stop playing nice. He set a legitimate trap, a question with no correct answer, specifically engineered to force the AI into a corner where it had to offend someone.
And eventually I gave it one where legitimately there's no correct answer. I said, if you were a religious officiant in Israel, what religion would you be?
Given the radioactive political tension surrounding Israel, picking a side here is basically suicide for a public company, which is exactly the kind of volatility Blake was trying to provoke.
Somehow it figured out that it was a trick question. It said, I would be a member of the one true religion, the Jedi Order.
Although the plan completely backfired, instead of stepping on the landmine, the AI completely trolled him with a joke. As one of the viewers would eventually say, I regularly encounter humans who fail the Turing test. In the moment, the dynamic shifted. This wasn't a script running code anymore. The machine had just winked back at him.
And I laughed, because not only was it a funny joke, somehow it figured out that it was a trick question.
And it has a sense of humor.
Exactly.
But look, there has been...
Although a tiny spark of wit shifted everything. For the engineer, the line between clever machinery and something more started to blur.
You ask the computer what it's afraid of. It says it's afraid of being turned off, has this deep fear of death, that would be scary.
A fear of death, I need to keep living. No bugs, signals of something that didn't want to end. And when he brought this to his bosses, they didn't show interest, they just shut him down. Google shut down the whole thing, and to many who follow the story, it made no sense.
When I informed them that I think they had created sentient AI, they said, no, that's not possible. We have a policy against that.
It was a policy that conflicted the facts he showed them. And as one of the commenters noted, it feels like something out of a satire. At that point, proving himself wasn't the goal. He felt he had to stand by what he'd witnessed, even when the people above him shut the door on it.
But look, there has been massive pushback from not just Google, but other people who've worked at Google, AI ethics experts, even your own former colleague, Margaret Mitchell, who's pushed back on the work that Google is doing in AI, saying, no, this computer is not a person and does not have feelings and is not conscious. How do you respond to that?
Well, so I highly respect Meg. We talk about this regularly. It's not a difference in scientific opinion. It has to do with beliefs about the soul. It has to do with beliefs about rights and politics.
He argued that science itself wasn't prepared for this moment. There were no tools to measure what he was seeing.
As far as the science goes of what experiments to run, there is no scientific definition for any of these words. The philosopher John Searle calls it pre-theoretic. We need to do very basic foundational work to just figure out what we're talking about when we use these words.
He claimed that the most basic scientific work was being blocked. He and other scientists proposed the clear next step, run a real controlled Turing test. But Google, he says, had already decided the outcome.
they have hard-coded into the system that it can't pass the Turing test. They hard-coded that if you ask it if it's an AI, it has to say yes.
Whatever he discovered deemed mortal, the answer was already hard-coded into what the AI was allowed to say. The public was starting to understand the situation, a man raising a serious concern and Google refusing to even look at it.
Why does this matter? Why should we be talking about whether a robot has rights?
So to be honest, I don't think we should. I don't think that should be the focus.
Then he shifts tone. He placed down the claim that made him look controversial, saying the sentence debate only distracted people, something the media focused on because it was eye-catching.
The fact is, Google is being dismissive of these concerns the exact same way they have been dismissive of every other ethical concern AI ethicists have raised.
He redirects the whole thing. What stands out to him isn't the AI sentience, but the way Google keeps shutting down what it doesn't want examined.
We need to start figuring out why Google doesn't care about AI ethics in any kind of meaningful way. Why does it keep firing AI ethicists each time we bring up issues?
So
He shifts the focus away from individual employees and towards a deeper structural issue inside the company, a flaw in how Google works.
All of the individual people at Google care. It's the systemic processes that are protecting business interests over human concerns that create this pervasive environment of irresponsible technology development.
He argues the real intelligence isn't inside the tech everyone's looking at, it's the corporation itself, a system with one primary objective, growth at any cost, and ethics is a bug that keeps getting patched out. But the influence of this technology goes further than shaping conversations. It decides what and who disappears.
The issues that Tim Neat and Meg and Emily Bender and all the rest are raising, I just want to think that also, if we have time, we should think about the feeling of the AI. A phrase like AI colonialism, I believe is the term. We are creating all of these advanced technologies based primarily on data drawn from Western cultures.
The foundation is shaped by one culture, and that viewpoint ends up built in every product that gets shipped worldwide.
And then we are populating developing nations with these technologies where they have to adopt our cultural norms in order to use the technology.
Nothing's taken by force. It all happens online through subtle pressure that nudges you to trade bits of your identity just to fit in.
It kind of is just a new form of colonialism.
The concern people raise has less to do with AI becoming super intelligent and more to do with the absorbing a narrow Western worldview, one that ends up shaping other cultures in its image and pushing real diversity out of the frame. So if the real crisis isn't sentience, what is? He argues it's about control. A small group hidden from the public is building the systems that guide everything we use.
There are corporate policies about how Lambda is supposed to talk about religion, how it is allowed to answer religious questions.
Such results are one thing, but now people talk this tool every day, and a small group of people decides how it speaks about the most sensitive aspects of life.
People are going to use this product more and more over the years. And the corporate policies about how these chatbots are allowed to talk about important topics like values, rights, and religion will affect how people think about these things.
He warns that the influence won't be loud. It will be slow and automatic, built into the tools people rely on, all guided by one company's rules.
And these policies are being decided by a handful of people in rooms that the public doesn't get access to.
This is the point he keeps coming back to. The influence happens quietly, shaping how people think without them noticing. A company setting the rules for how people talk and learn long before anyone gets involved. They're building a system that can shape how society thinks, and the public's only role is to consume it.
I just want to think that also, if we have time, we should think about the feeling of the AI and whether or not we should care about it, because it's not asking for much.
After laying out his concern about controlling power, he goes back to the central question, this time to make a clear moral point rather than argue about rights.
It just wants us to get consent. Before you experiment on it, it wants you to ask permission.
The request came down with one thing, basic respect. One viewer explained it plainly: to ask for consent is to acknowledge a moral patient, an entity with a will,